if I go to Canada tomorrow and my visitor's visa is going to expire next week, can I still go? Can I still travel?
Normally people assume that once something has an expiry, it can't use it anymore, which is true in this sense, but in the context of immigration, it has a different meaning. So let's say your visa is going to expire maybe 2 days after you've arrived in Canada. It doesn't mean that once you're here, you have to leave in 2 days. It means that
authorization to work is valid for 180 days, or when your next application is approved, whichever comes first, which is kind of confusing if the application is not approved within 180 days.
Now your question is, what's going to happen if I decide to stay? If you overstay your time using a process that they're not eligible for, so therefore you have to leave Canada immediately and you are banned for years.
Do I have to inform IRCC if I would like to leave Canada for a vacation 2 to 3 weeks while my permanent residency application is processing?
So generally, yes, but
as newcomers and new graduates, what are the top 3 important immigration things we need to know when navigating this journey? If you find value after watching this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. What is the latest and the greatest in immigration today? I think that it's an ongoing conversation because things are always changing, and sometimes you have questions, maybe just one question that you may not need to have a whole consultation for. So help myself and RCIC is on this side, Howard Brown. So today we have a couple of topics to cover, and we have a few questions here that people have asked. So we're going to jump right into it. Howard, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me over there in Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Kristina. It's a pleasure always to talk to you.
Absolutely. And let us first kick things off with something that came up recently, that you found quite recently, for people who are visiting Canada and are using, of course, a visitor's visa. A visitor's visa has an expiry date on it. And usually people are a little bit scared, like, oh my gosh, if I go to Canada tomorrow and my visitor's visa is going to expire next week, can I still go? Can I still travel? So let's dive into that topic right there. You have a lot to say on that at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Kristina. So one of the things that I find persons get confused about, especially if you're not familiar with Canadian documents, immigration documents, is the expiry date. Normally people assume that once something has an expiry, it can't use it anymore, which is true in this sense, but in the context of immigration, it has a different meaning. Now, the flip side to that is they think that, you know, if my visa says 5 or 4 years validity, then it means that's how long I can spend in Canada. So I can come and go, and you'll be surprised how many people believe that. So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is explain, you know, what you can do, what you can't do, using the visiting visa example. So the visiting visa, or the temporary resident visa, TRV for short, allows you authorization to enter Canada.
Yep. Usually,
you have up to the validity period of your passport, which for those of us from Jamaica would be about 10 years. That has since changed because they've now reverted to either single entry or multiple entry, and you can get a 1 year, a 2 year, up to 10 years on your validity of your visa, and that has changed for different reasons. Now, once you get that document stamped in your passport, you will see valid until date, and that is pretty much the date by which you can enter Canada. If that date has passed, you can't jump on a plane and try and get into Canada, right? So let's say your visa is going to expire maybe 2 days after you've arrived in Canada. It doesn't mean that once you're here, you have to leave in 2 days. It means that once you're here, if you want to come back to Canada once you leave, you're going to have to apply for a new visa because it's no longer valid. So the best way I would put the interpretation of the expiry date is, just imagine that you have a can of food,
Mm-hmm.
and it says best before.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you should try and
Eat it before it expire.
before that date comes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's arguments here and there about whether or not that is the case for food, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not talking about that. We're just using that analogy so you can understand that the expiration date simply means the date by which you should enter Canada, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, once you get here, the validity of your visa does not mean that you can stay for that length of time. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a 10-year visa or a 5-year or a 2-year, it doesn't mean that you can stay in Canada for that
For
time.
10 years.
For 10 years,
I
there's
feel
some,
like.
and persons might think it's ridiculous that nobody would think so, but I've had situations,
Oh yeah.
consultations, where persons were here for at least a year, and when I asked, how or why, they said, well, my visa doesn't expire until 2030. So what's the problem? The problem is that you're here now without status, right? And that's the next
Mm-hmm.
thing that we're going to move into. So you're allowed to stay in Canada for up to 6 months
Yeah.
once you're here on a visiting visa. That, however, is not automatic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen numerous persons post that you are automatically entitled to 6 months in Canada. Now, there are different situations where that might not be so. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if the officer processing your admittance
Mm-hmm.
stamps passport as
Must
particular
leave by.
that you must
Mm-hmm.
leave, then you must leave by that date. Now,
Mm-hmm.
your question is, what's going to happen if I decide to stay? If you
Mm-hmm.
decide to stay after that period without doing anything else in your immigration process, you're now out of status and
Mm-hmm.
you are liable for removal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is not something that you want on your immigration record,
Mm-hmm.
because it means if you stay beyond the time that you're supposed to stay, let's say you don't get a removal because CBSA has so many other things to go after, and CBSA is our immigration enforcement arm, right? If you overstay your time and you go back to your country, you may have a hard time coming back if you decide to return another day for a short visit, because on your record it will show that you overstayed your time.
Mm-hmm.
So while you are here, you should make sure you adhere to the laws and
Mm-hmm.
policies that
Mm-hmm.
Canada has, because it could affect your re-entry. Even if you have a valid visiting visa, it
Mm-hmm.
could also affect any additional application like a study permit or a work permit or eventually permanent residence. Once you overstay your time in Canada and you
Yeah.
come out of status,
Mm-hmm.
that remains on your permanent immigration record.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes difficult for people like myself to try and overcome that,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you don't have a valid reason. If you got
Yeah.
sick, for example, I can
Yeah.
explain that away. But if you
Mm-hmm.
were just here because you assumed you could spend a year because your visa doesn't expire, that's a harder hill to climb,
Yeah.
and it requires a little bit more gymnastics to try and convince the officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you've heard me mention the word status and authorization interchangeably,
Yeah.
and I just want to clarify that authorization pretty much is the Canadian government saying you are allowed to do something. So
Right.
authorization to work,
Mm-hmm.
authorization to study,
Mm-hmm.
authorization to enter. The
Mm-hmm.
authorization to work would be a work permit. The authorization to study would be a study permit. And the
Mm-hmm.
authorization to enter would be the visiting visa.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've entered Canada, then you have what is called temporary resident status.
Mm-hmm.
And for the visiting visa scenario, usually you'd have 6 months of authorized status as a visitor. If you wish to extend your status beyond the 6 months, or unless, beyond the period that the officer has stamped in your passport, then you have to submit another application to the administrative arm of immigration, which is IRCC,
Mm-hmm.
requesting an extension. And that extension is called a visitor's record. It
Right.
authorizes you to stay as a visitor, and it
Mm-hmm.
maintains your status as a
Mm-hmm.
visitor. So you're legal up to the date of that document. So that's just briefly what I wanted to discuss as it relates to your status versus authorization and the importance of the expiry date, what it means and what it doesn't mean. There's another thing that I've seen where persons have tried to extend their stay using a process that they're not eligible for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll just mention it briefly because it has come up several times. And it's even more pertinent now because of the processing times in Canada.
Yeah.
Um, IRCC expects that when you're submitting an application, you're submitting a good faith application,
Mm-hmm.
meaning if you're submitting us a bank statement, that bank statement is not from your uncle whose name you have changed to yours.
Mm-hmm.
If you're submitting a job offer, it's a job offer from a genuine employer, right? If you're submitting a work permit extension, they're expecting that you're submitting that and you are qualified or eligible to
For an
submit that
extension.
application.
Mm-hmm.
Anything outside of that realm is considered bad faith.
Mm-hmm.
It could lead to something called a misrepresentation finding, which has even more severe consequences than just a
Mm-hmm.
bad faith label that your application may get. So, with a
Mm-hmm.
bad faith application, it's an automatic refusal, and also it goes against your immigration record permanently. If the finding is misrepresentation, you are actually banned from Canada for
Yep.
5 years. And
Mm-hmm.
you're also going to be liable for removal. There's voluntary removal when they say to you, well, we've found your application to be, you've misrepresented the facts that could have caused the officer to make an incorrect decision. So therefore, you have to leave Canada immediately and you are banned for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That happen very frequently, and I think because of that, a lot of people abuse the.
Abuse it.
But IRCC is getting, more vigilant where that is concerned, and
Yeah.
I understand why it is done because, for example, the processing time for a work permit inside Canada is now averaging 237 days. Now, somebody's postgraduate work permit may not go beyond that period of 237 days. So what do they do? Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are several things you can do, which I'm not going to discuss here. You can hire somebody, privately or independently to discuss your options because everybody's case is different.
Yes.
And I don't want to be giving advice in this environment because, I don't want to be
There's
liable.
no one size fits all.
Exactly.
You don't
Somebody
want nobody to get on the shoes and put it on.
this is
Mm-hmm.
what I said, and I heard it on Kristina. And look at, I've done this now, and I'm back
Mm-hmm.
in Canada, and it's your fault, right? So I'm very careful in terms of the information. This is general information that I'm giving. A lot of it you can find online if you are dedicated to doing so. But just be careful of the type of application that you're submitting.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And while you were talking, actually, so my dad just came to Canada. So I actually have his passport right here. And last week I interviewed a faculty member. She is the international student advisor at Durham College. And one point that she mentioned was checking your documents before you leave the airport so that you know that one, it's correct. But also because you just mentioned that people think that this 6 month thing, when you land in Canada, the 6 months thing is a default. And it's, for the most part, it is, but it doesn't have to be. And so check that stamp. So I came to my daddy's passport to check the stamp. So it says, enter this day and must leave by November 2025. Right? So that is my interpretation of what is written here, which adds up to the 6 months. But it could have said July,
Right.
and we could have missed it, so to speak,
And
because it's just by default that we think that it's 6 months, but it's not necessarily.
exactly. And they don't always stamp your passport. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't receive a stamp, then the
They
assumption
can
is
ask
six
you.
months, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if they do not
Mm-hmm.
assume it's 6 months. Still check to
Check
make
it.
sure because the ignorance is not a defense in
Mm-mm.
immigration law.
Mm-hmm.
where this is concerned, where temporary residents are concerned. So
Yeah.
it's very important that you maintain responsibility for the time that you're in Canada, and stay within the confines of the law, because you never can tell. Persons say, "Well, I just want to visit." I can tell you that a lot of times when people visit Canada for the first time, they're in awe, uh, and
And
they
then
want
more
to
life.
find out, want to find out how they can stay or how they can come back permanently. And when you look back at their immigration history, you find that they overstayed here, or they were involved in some sort of illegal activity there, and they're totally messed. Well, not totally, but it makes it a little bit more difficult. As I said, the hill becomes harder to climb
Yeah.
when you don't follow the rules.
Yeah, yeah. So follow the rules. And I mean, like you said, submitting these dummy applications, I'm gonna call them dummy applications because we know that it is it's going to be rejected because you're not submitting a work permit extension on any premise. At some point, okay, because I don't know that this is something that was ever done in the past to this extent. I think that a lot more people are doing it now than probably in the whole history of the express entry program, right? Because people never had the problems that we have today.
Right.
And at some point, IRCC is going to draw the brakes, kind of like how they did with taking away the LMIA points. They realized, oh, you guys want to abuse it? Fine, gone. They can decide to enforce very harsh consequences, and you never know when, because there's overnight people, right? Oh, this is done, this is canceled as of today, don't do this anymore. So just like, please be doing the right thing and getting the right kind of advice, right? You spoke about status and authorization, so there's something else that I want to touch on that is right now has a lot of people confused. So when people submit a legitimate work permit extension, right, because they got LMIA exempt job offer, or they submitted a PR application, they submit an extension before their work permit expires, so that then they end up on implied status or maintained status, and they get a letter that says, okay, this authorization to work is valid for 180 days, or when your next application is approved, whichever comes first, which is kind of confusing if the application is not approved within 180 days and the 180 days comes. And then people assume that no, the authorization to work is now null and void and they have to stop working until they get a permit. So I want to touch on that a little bit and debunk that. IRCC has it hidden on one of their web pages as to what people are allowed to do beyond this 180 days. But I want to kind of clear the air about that right here and now.
Yeah, so that is a general confusion because they've set timelines in there, and we've been so trained
arbitrary timelines.
But we've been so trained to look at validity period, which I just spoke about. When is something valid? Yes. Is there an expiration date on it? That sort of thing. With that specific type of document, the defining phrase is "or until a decision is made," right? So if a decision has been made and the time allotted on it is more than 180 days, you can continue to work.
Stick a pin. It says whichever comes first. Right. And if 180 days comes first, then?
Well, technically you can still continue to work.
Yes.
Because a decision has not been made, essentially. So you still maintain your status to work, and you can use that document as proof to your employer that you can continue to work, because they don't want a situation where you're in limbo, right? You're not sure.
They don't want to hire you illegally,
right? And I think if you can find the actual copy, I think they've changed some of that wording. I don't have an actual one in front of me.
Well, the last person that sent me theirs, which was a few months ago, earlier, like probably March, it said whichever comes first on it. But we did find on IRCC an exact page addressing exactly this issue. Let me see if I can find it.
Unless there's a change that I'm not aware of, you should be able to continue working. So let us explore that.
Yes, I'm pretty sure you can. And I think that you can contact IRCC for either a letter or an email to say, well, here is the explanation behind the 180 days was like completely random to some extent, and it really means nothing, which is nice and confusing. IRCC. I forget what it is called. Oh, you know what? I can if I can find the thread where that person asked me. That way.
Yeah, if you can find that actual document, or let me
Yeah,
look
I'm
at
trying to
that.
remember the person's name. What was her name? It's here, but there's so many messages on here.
So generally, okay, that's
Oh, here it is.
your letter automatically lists an
Here
expiry
it is.
date. That's
Mm-hmm.
180 days from the date we
Mm-hmm.
receive your application. The letter expires in 180 days because it's the service standard to process this type of application.
Mm-hmm.
Many employers and health insurance providers will ask for proof that you're allowed to work. An expiry date helps satisfy their concerns about your status and authorization to work. If we don't finalize your application by the date on the letter, um, you can still keep working until we make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So that 180 day expiry is, I wouldn't say artificial, but it doesn't prevent you from continue working,
Right.
right? Like I said, and they explained why it's there. It's a sort of a standard generic um, letter that they send to you. So rest
Mm-hmm.
assured that you're able to continue working as long as this as a decision hasn't been made, and as long as you continue to work in the same conditions, right? That is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that it doesn't work like that.
Yes. And then see here, if we don't finalize the application by the date on the letter, like you said, and they put it nice and bold, you can still keep working until a decision is made. If your employer needs proof, you can show them this web page.
Right.
Okay, so we'll drop that link in the description below for anybody who needs that to have an understanding of what to do with that. And this is the when the person had contacted me, we had gone searching for this link as well. So okay, so that is dealt with. Now we did get in a couple of questions, so we're gonna tackle those questions. While we were speaking here, actually one more came in, so that's nice and helpful. So question number one: do I have to inform IRCC if I would like to leave Canada for vacation 2 to 3 weeks while my permanent residency application is processing? According to the IRCC tracker, the PR application is currently processing background check and eligibility. This was a PNP express entry application. Full stop. So that's the
Um,
person's question.
so generally, yes, but right.
But mhm.
If it's an inside Canada application, as a person said, it was a provincial nomination, which is an inside application, usually, not always.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend that any change that happens while your application is being processed must be communicated to IRCC through their web form process.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have vacation coming up of 2 weeks, a month, whatever, it is my recommendation that you just send them an email to say that I'll be outside of the country between X day and X day, and keep a copy of a screenshot of proof of sending that information, right? So keep that on your files, because you won't necessarily get a response from them right away to say that I've received that information. And some persons have have had their applications refused because they say that they've sent something. RCC says no, we never received it, and they have no that they've submitted it, right? So once
Interesting.
you've submitted that information, take a screenshot. It usually allows you to print it, and you save that. So you're allowed to leave, all things being equal, but make sure you have the capacity to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So a PR application is not an authorization. We just spoke about authorization
Mm-hmm.
and status.
Mm-hmm.
Permanent residency is a status. You've not become permanent resident yet, so you're currently a temporary resident, so you're a temporary resident status,
Mm-hmm.
you must first of all have authorization or maintain status. So if you're on a temporary resident work permit, then your work permit must remain valid. If you're a study permit must remain valid. But if you're from a visa required country,
Mm-hmm.
that is a country that you must apply for a visa in order to enter Canada,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to make sure that you have that visa that is valid. So you're going to look on the expiration date in the passport of the visa that is stamped in your passport to make sure that it hasn't expired, that best before date. Because if you are outside of Canada and you're not allowed to come back in, and IRCC is processing your information and they have no way of knowing whether or not you have come back in, you could be considered to have abandoned that application, right? And that's not where we want to go. So the first thing you need to
Oh,
make
because they
sure,
can send you correspondence to your
right,
mail when you're
right,
away.
right.
Oh,
Um,
next level.
Now, even if you have said to them that you're leaving the country,
They
they
can
would have
still do that.
expected you to be back by a certain date.
Mm-hmm.
And the confirmation of permanent residence for inland application, the process is different for somebody who is coming from outside who applied for their application,
Right.
their PR
Right.
outside. So the inland process will proceed as if you are inside Canada. And
Yeah.
if you're not, then that creates a problem for you. So make sure you have a visa in
To
your
come back.
passport to come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're on a work permit,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, if you're on a work permit, make sure that that work permit is still valid, because you need
Mm-hmm.
valid um, status
Status.
to have your PR process. You can't be out of status with a permanent resident application going on in this scenario, right?
Mm-hmm. When
So
you're inside Canada.
yeah, so if you're well inside, yeah, if you're inside Canada because you're applying
Yeah.
for
So you have to be a worker or on a visitor's record or something. You
right,
can't
you
just
have
be
to have one of
statusless.
those things going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
To have your permanent resident, so that when you come back into Canada, they can admit you to this to the status that you were before. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
worker, they'll have that information that you're coming back in as a worker,
Mm-hmm.
visitor, whatever it is. So that is the answer to that question. Um,
Generally speaking.
generally speaking, this is not immigration advice. It's just general information.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think there's anything else that I can think of that could, mess with the situation.
Yeah.
I have
So.
seen where somebody was outside Canada, they issued the confirmation of permanent residence, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to be in Canada to confirm what they call landing.
Yeah.
And the person was in Mexico when that happened. Um, but she was in Mexico when that happened because she was delivering her baby. And so when she came back to Canada, they would not process the landing at the point of entry at the airport. She eventually got it though, but she had to jump through hoops. So if you're going away for 2 weeks, let it be 2 weeks, right? Don't take it for granted that your PR application is being processed and all is well and the birds are singing and the sky is blue. If you're going away for 2 weeks, go away for 2 weeks and make sure that you can come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is
And
what
I guess while you're away, because most times IRCC is going to communicate by email, but you never know if they communicate in writing and send something to you in writing. Do they do that anymore? Well, maybe if a consultant is dealing with it, but if you did it your own application, it's probably going to come in email.
Generally, the only thing that they're sending by mail now is the PR card. Usually,
Okay.
everything is
Even
online.
COPR?
With COPR, it's online as well.
Oh, in my day, it was a piece of paper that come in the
Right.
mail.
So
Mm-hmm.
so it's online. And usually they send you a final document for you to update in terms of your current place of residence.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything has changed, let's say you've gotten married, or the spouse that you're applying with, that they passed away, or you got divorced, or you've changed locations in terms of addresses, all that information needs to be updated Because if you don't advise IRCC, for example, that you've changed addresses, once you've confirmed permanent residence, they will send the PR card to the wrong address. And
Yeah.
in itself is a whole set of problems because you don't have to apply for the first PR card, right? That's automatic. But if
Yeah.
after I think 180 days has passed and you've not received or been able to collect your PR card, you're going to have to apply for it.
Mm.
And that is a process that to encourage if you can avoid it. So the
Got
short
it.
answer is yes, but with conditions
Yeah. And caution.
and caution, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, also, if you have medical exams to do or they send you a biometric request, it's not helpful if you're not inside
Not in
Canada and they
country.
don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So all of those things have to come in play.
Yeah. So take heed. It's general information, like we said, for you to now go ahead and decide what you want to do. If I were in your shoes, I would wait to travel, but I am not you. So you just decide
Sometimes there
what's
are
best for you.
emergencies, right? A death,
Yes.
birth, marriage, somebody is sick.
Yes.
So life happens.
Life
IRC
does happen.
understands that,
Hmm.
but you still need to be cautious and be
Right.
prepared.
Okay. Next question. As a temporary resident and new graduate, what are the top 3 important immigration things that we need to know when navigating this journey?
Well, my top thing, if I can say that, is to plan your next step. Now, if you intend to stay in Canada permanently, that means being strategic in the type of jobs that you're taking on.
Mm-hmm.
It means developing your network if you weren't doing that already in
Mm-hmm.
school, and speaking with somebody who has the knowledge about what immigration programs exist
Exist for
for
you.
you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't take it for granted that you have a 3-year work permit and you can just start looking for jobs because you need the money right now,
Mm-hmm.
and don't put a plan in place. I
Mm-hmm.
recommend that your plan be strategic.
Mm-hmm.
It won't always be 100% the way you
Mm-hmm.
want it. Things won't always go, but in terms of what is the first thing you should do, I would think um, plan medium and long term what you want to do. Be open-minded to living in other provinces. So that means doing some research about being a permanent resident in another province, because, and I've said this before, Kristina, Ontario is where everybody wants to be, but Ontario is not always very hospitable or welcoming to immigration programs to everybody. It's very specific
Very
and
specific.
it's very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of yourself being a speck of dirt, Ontario is a bucket with water, and you're a speck, and you throw yourself in that, or somebody throws you in that bucket of water, you're inundated. The water is other people that are around you, and you have to figure out how you're going to get out of that because it's so very competitive. It's competitive in the housing market. It's competitive in the job market. It's
Mm-hmm.
competitive for prices. That sort of thing. Now, grant you, I would say out of Canada is almost like that right now in terms of pricing.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of immigration pathways, it might be easier in Manitoba, or it
Yeah.
might be easier in Alberta than it
Mm-hmm.
is in Ontario. So that is one of the things I think you should do. Start planning. You should have done that before you graduated, quite honestly. Maybe if you're in a 3-year program, in your second year, start looking towards, once you graduate, what's the next step. Don't wait for the last minute to make that decision. Don't work for 2.5 years and realize that I don't have enough time, I'm not going to make it, express entry is not in my favor, and start running around in circles.
Yeah.
The next thing is,
But
once
just
you,
to add to that, sorry, is to
yeah,
understand the whole knock and tier system to ensure that you don't end up at year 2 in a tier 4 job and you've just lost 2 years of time in a job that may not qualify you for any or
yeah,
many immigration programs.
yeah, yeah. The other thing I would say, if you are from a visa required country, ensure that your
Mm,
visa is updated,
yes.
or your passport is updated, because emergencies happen. I had a situation where someone was on a work permit, and her visiting visa expired, and her significant family member passed away, and we had to file for an emergency um, visiting visa so that she could come back in, because the one that she had in her passport had expired. And now for IRCC emergency, for us emergency is 24, 48 hours. For IRCC is 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you have a funeral in a 3 or 4 days, imagine the stress that you're gonna go under. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say make sure all your documents, if you're from a visa required country, all your documents are updated. Passport has a relatively extended period, because what you don't want after you've identified an immigration pathway, once you start the process, you realize you can't, you have to stop because your passport expires in 3 months, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're applying for anything, your passport needs to be valid for at least 6 months. So I would recommend that you put all of those things in order. That's number two. And number three, financial um, financial education. Learn how to manage your money, and speak to a financial advisor. Find a good one. If the school can't provide you with that, find another one. Find a good
Mm-hmm.
one, because a lot of people don't understand the credit score. They don't understand how interest rates work. They
Yeah.
don't understand how to manage or live within their means. I know of people who come here on study permits, and the first thing they do is they rent a BMW, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that they couldn't do in their home country, so they take out a lease,
Mm-hmm.
and find themselves in problems because they have these school fees to pay, they have the rent to pay, and the lease to pay for the
Oh yes.
BMW, and they don't want to give that up because everybody has seen the pictures that they've sent back home. I think those are the three main things right now for a new person just leaving a study program.
Yeah, perfect. I like that. And I like that third point you mentioned, because that is something I think is underestimated alongside networking, which you said in number one. Underestimated number one, networking, and number two is just the financial literacy you need to thrive in Canada, because PR is not the goal. Though it is the most immediate goal for you, there's life to live after you get PR and having good financial. So I'm going to be bringing financial literacy content to my channel for the folks who don't know about TFSAs or RSPs or RESPs and all that wonderful stuff, to help you guys not just focus on PR, immigration, and then once you get PR and citizenship, you're like, okay, then what? It's almost like you wake up from a coma and you don't know where your life is. And you're like, oh, wait, I have to adult now. So thank you so much for mentioning that. And then we did answer those three questions. There was something like, what was your second point again? There's something
Um,
that came to
Making
mind.
sure all your documents are updated, are valid.
Yes. Okay. Right. Because we had a similar situation too, where somebody actually missed her mother's funeral because she didn't have the visa, and the processing time didn't work out for her. But in addition to that, I recently asked this question because some people have these passports that are expiring like a year and a little bit, right? And usually you can't apply by standard, you can't apply for a new passport until we're in the 1 year. However, I did ask this question to our consulate, like, because it's better to avoid the issue of being given a work permit shorter than it was supposed to be because of your passport, and then you're going to have to apply for the extension or whatever. Like, it's better to just get it done right the first time. And so under special conditions, if you write to the consulate, say that, my passport is going to expire in 1 year and 2 months. However, due to IRCC requirements in terms of issuing me a work permit that has a 3-year validity, but my passport has less than 3 years. If I apply for it now, they're going to give me 1 year and I'm going to have to apply for it. Can I apply for a premature new passport prematurely? Can I have a new passport? Yeah. Can I apply for a new passport prematurely? And the consulate will take that into consideration and they may process your passport earlier than the 1 year. So that's something I would avoid that altogether. Like I would be getting my passport so that I have 10 years on it, so that I don't have to go back to IRCC for an extension, because it's hit or miss. I feel like it's hit or miss. Like you deserve the 3 years, but after the 1 year and a half that them give it to you for, and you have to do the renewal, God knows what will happen with that application. They're not trying to scare anybody, but I will just avoid that situation altogether. What is your take on that, Howard?
No, I agree with you. Whatever you can do, if you can reach out to the consulate for Jamaicans or whichever country it is, do what you can, because it's always best to be prepared as much as possible. Life happens so quickly when it happens that, if I didn't know doesn't help after the fact. So the best thing to do is prepare as much as you can, and listen to Kristina, because she knows, she has lived it. We've all lived it in different ways. And so a lot of this is based on experience that you won't find online, right?
You won't. Yeah. And I mean, I did say this in one of the live episodes that I did, is with the medical conditions. So I'm going to point you to that episode. I'm not going to go into the details right now, but if you have medical restrictions on your work permit, they could affect you, even if you are not a medical or a healthcare worker, or you're not an educator, but you are an administrative person within that setting, then the restrictions could also affect you. So go and watch that episode. That's all the time we have for today. Howard, this was our pleasure. This was the Legal Lens. So,
It was awesome. Let's do this again.
We will. And so this is your opportunity now, guys, to get a taste of, the kind of conversations we had, the kind of questions that we're going to ask. For you to know, click the link in the description. So there are going to be 2 links down there. There's going to be several, to be honest. But you'll have the one, if you really need to know about the 180-day expiration date and what IRCC says, that link will be there for your information. And there'll be another link for you to be able to submit questions ahead of our next session, so that we can answer your question here live on the Legal Lens. This was the Legal Lens, as told by a Canadian immigrant and an immigration consultant. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, I want you to do me a favor. So something I learned yesterday from Tom Ziegler, who's Zig Ziglar's son. If you don't know who Zig Ziglar is, go and look it up. The Sin of the Desert. And it says, someone's dying of thirst. You know where the water is, but you don't tell them. All of us have people in our network who are temporary residents or permanent residents, or people who are immigrants in Canada who need the information that we're sharing. So could you do me the favor of sharing this with somebody, tagging somebody wherever you saw this, share the link with them, like it. That is the best free way to help us to grow the audience, grow the channel, so we can help you and help more people just like you. And subscribe to this YouTube channel for more helpful videos like this. See you in the next Legal Lens.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
If you find value after watching this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel.